Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. This time we're going to take a look at this, the highly anticipated UDOO Bolt, which has been supplied to review by my friends at UDOO. Now, the Bolt is a maker board, a small computer with an embedded Ryzen processor and onboard Vega graphics. And UDOO haven't just sent me the board, no, this arrived in a very large box. Let me show you, it's got it down here, a very large box, and this contains all sorts of UDOO Bolt accessories and peripherals and things. This is the power supply, I think. There's also various packets containing exciting things. There's a case in here as well, so we can look at the whole UDOO Bolt ecosystem. And there's also a laminate in here that lets us know that the UDOO Bolt is now available to be ordered from mouser.com. So, this is all very exciting, so let's go and take a closer look. Right, here we have the UDOO Bolt. You can see it written on the end there, that lovely spot laminate effect. So let's get straight inside. It just opens up very easy, and oh yes, it's great packaging. I love this. Let's take this thing out, and whoa, there we are. That is the UDOO Bolt. If it come out like that, get the box out the way, and we just now try and get the packaging off here. Is it sealed? It is. Will it come easily? Oh, it will. It does. There we are. And oh, crinkle, and whoa, there we are. The UDOO Bolt board, and that looks rather nice, doesn't it? And as you can see, it's dominated by a large cooler and fan and heatsink there, which we'd expect on a board of this power. And it's worth saying there are two different versions of this board. There is the V3 and the V8, and this is a V8. And to let you know the differences, let's turn to this table, where as you can see the V8 is based on a Ryzen embedded V1605B, whereas the V3 is based on a Ryzen embedded V1202B. And this means that the V8 is a quad-core system with a processor running at 2 GHz base frequency, 3.6 GHz maximum frequency, whereas the V3 is a dual-core processor running at 2.3 GHz base frequency, 3.2 GHz maximum frequency. And as you can see on the V8, we get Radeon Vega 8 graphics running at up to 1100 MHz, and on the V3, you can probably tell by the name now, we get the Radeon Vega 3 graphics running at up to 1000 MHz. And all the other specs of the boards are the same aside from the price, which is $418 for the UDOO Bolt V8 and $332 for the UDOO Bolt V3. Clearly, these prices mean that the UDOO Bolt is an expensive maker board, but it does offer a great deal of power, a great deal of connectivity in this form factor, which is what, 12 by 12 centimeters, that's what, about 4.7 by 4.7 inches. And talking of the size of the board, let's compare it to some other small computers, such as the UDOO x86 Advanced Plus, a Latte Panda Alpha, and a Raspberry Pi. And clearly the Bolt is much larger than these other boards, but it's also significantly smaller than a standard mini ITX motherboard if you want to put together a really small Ryzen-based computer. So, let's now focus in on the specifications other than the processor. And the first thing to talk about is memory. There is no onboard memory on this board. This is not a single board computer. We have to add memory modules. And as you can probably see, there are two SODIMM slots which we add the memory into. And these take DDR4 modules, DDR2400, and we can add a total capacity of RAM up to 32 GB. If we turn to the front edge, we find a barrel jack for power. This requires 19 volts at least 60 watts. And then next to that, we've got a gigabit Ethernet socket. And then next to that, we've got two USB-C ports, and these will support DisplayPort output. And then next to those, we've got, as you can see, two full-size HDMI ports, HDMI 2.0 ports. So we've got 4 ports here, which could all support 4K output. You can connect 4 independent 4K displays to a UDOO Bolt. And then finally here we've got audio output, both analog and digital via this 3.5mm audio jack. And talking of audio output, if we rotate around to the next edge of the board, we find two pre-amplified speaker connectors. Rotating to the next edge, we find a second 3.5mm jack. This is a headphone and a microphone input combination socket. And then next to that, we've got two Type A USB 3.1 ports. And then moving along from those, we've got an IR receiver, we've got a power switch, and we've got a front panel connector. Finally, rotating to our last edge, we find lots and lots of exciting things. Not least down here, we've got SATA data and power connector, so we can connect a standard SATA drive. And then there's lots of other things here that really show the maker potential of the UDOO Bolt. For a start, we've got three Grove connectors here, and these give us analog, UART and IC2 connections. And then we've got here a couple of Arduino compatible connectors. And this is because the UDOO Bolt has got an inbuilt ATmega32U4 microcontroller. And indeed, if we cut to a shot of the base of the board, we can see that little chip right down here. Very useful thing to have. It's connected to the main Ryzen processor internally via a USB connection. So it's exactly like having an Arduino Leonardo connected to a standard PC via a USB port. But here it's integrated onto the board. And it gives us a whole range of connections, not least as 12 analog inputs, up to 23 digital inputs and outputs, 7 of which have got PWM. So there's all kinds of possibilities to use a UDOO Bolt for things like robotics. Also on the underside of the board, we've got a real-time clock battery. You can't have missed it. It's nicely fastened down. That's good to see. And then we've also got three M.2 slots. The first of these is an E-keyed slot here. This is for a wireless module because there isn't onboard Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on this board, but you can add in a wireless module in this slot. And then we've got a B-keyed M.2 slot, that's this one. This will take a SATA M.2 SSD. And then we've also got an M-keyed slot here. This will take an NVMe SSD. And the interface here is a PCIe x4 generation 3, so we can add a really fast NVMe SSD. This all said, you don't have to add storage to a UDOO Bolt to start using it, because here we've got 32 gigabytes of onboard flash storage, so we can boot from that initially and add other storage as we need it. So there we are. That is all the specs I think of the UDOO Bolt. So let's just now turn it around the other way. There it is, and just be amazed at this fantastic small computer. Right, here we have all the accessories, the peripherals that UDOO have kindly supplied to use with my UDOO Bolt. Some of these are essentials, some are nice to haves. So let's start with the essentials, clear a bit of space as well. And first of all, let's deal with power. This is clearly a power lead, and in here is the power supply, which is clearly, it's a power supply. We're used to power adapters. That'll go obviously in there, and this provides us 19 volts at a 60 watt adapter. There isn't currently an official price for this, but when that is available on the UDOO website, I will either add it in a caption in this video if I could find out during the edit, or I'll put a link in the video description. The other thing we have to have is some memory, and this is a nice little packet of memory. And there we are, I've got inside. And the board can take 1 or 2 SODIMMs, so it can have either 4 gigabytes of RAM all the way up to 32 gigabytes of RAM. These are two 16 gigabyte SODIMMs I've been supplied, so I'm going to have lots of RAM on my UDOO Bolt. Let's just get a stand in a knife to let us in here. Get into these. This is our first SODIMM module. Obviously handle these very carefully. I am electrostatically grounded right now, so let's put this down over here carefully out of the way. And also the other module can rest there beside it. And now let's turn to these exciting bags, which contain all sorts of things. This first one I think is an HDMI lead. There we are, a nice HDMI lead. And then the next thing here is I think a SATA cable kit. And there we are. There's some cables to connect a SATA drive, a data and power to the UDOO Bolt. I won't be using these in this video, but they're going to be very handy to have these in a video in a few weeks' time, in which I'm going to be testing out some SSDs. And I think I'll use a UDOO Bolt for that. I'll use those cables. Next here, we've got a M.2 SATA SSD. And there we are, which is in its protective packaging as well. So let's get that out of the packaging and put it down over here. This is a M.2 2260 SATA SSD, which means it's 60mm long to fit on the UDOO Bolt. And it's a Transcend MTS 600, it's 128GB, and it's sold for $78.90. Finally, our last of these envelopes is this, which is a wireless module. And there we are. And as you can see, this is an M.2 device. This will add a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to the UDOO Bolt. And again, let's put those safely out of the way. And then finally, if I can find it somewhere here, this is in some ways the most exciting thing. This is the UDOO Bolt's enclosure, its case. Again, there isn't an official price for this yet, but it looks like a fantastic thing from the pictures I've seen online, and we're about to see it in the real world. And come on, doesn't want to open. There, ooh, this is a serious piece of metal. This is a really, really serious piece of metal. Look at that. This is a beautiful looking case. This is going to give a really good protection to the UDOO Bolt. If you want to use a UDOO Bolt as a small PC, as maybe a media playing PC, what a fantastic case to put it in. So, I now need to put everything together. I think I'll start with the memory. There we are, we've now got 32GB of RAM, and under the board I'm now going to fit 3 M.2 peripherals. And there we are, the first is the wireless networking card to give us Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And there's the Transcend SATA SSD. And I'm also going to fit this WD Black NVMe SSD. Why do I need all these drives on this board? No, but I want to test the speed of all these interfaces, so I need a drive fitted in this slot. So there we are, 3 M.2 peripherals have been fitted. So all I now need to do is to fit the board in the case. It's a very snug fit, but a very good fit. This is a really, really nice case. So I'll just put the top on. And there we are, the UDOO Bolt is ready for action. And as you can hopefully see, the case is really good because we've got all the connections on the front, all the connections on the back. You would expect those. In fact, that's the front, isn't it? But you can also get access to all the other connectors on these panels on the side of the case. And there's also some space in here if you want. You can mount a 2.5-inch SSD. But there we are, all finished. I think it's now time for us to try out the UDOO Bolt. Right, I've now got the UDOO Bolt all connected up and running. And specifically, we're running Ubuntu, which was pre-installed for me on the eMMC flash. And as we can see here in the system monitor, the 4 CPU cores, 8 threads are running along perfectly happily. And we've got over 30GB of free memory, so obviously all the memory is working fine. As you might be able to hear, the fan is quite noisy. The fan on the UDOO Bolt goes between being completely on or completely off. At least here in Ubuntu, this might be a fan control issue. Although apparently UDOO are working on a firmware update for the BIOS to potentially give us some more fan control in the BIOS, because there isn't currently any fan control in the BIOS. Things might be better with the fan in Windows, as I'll try in a minute. But here in Ubuntu, what I thought we would do is just to bring up the terminal down here and run a few tests of the speed of those drives we've got connected to the system. And so first of all, I'm going to test the speed of the NVMe SSD, which is the WD Black drive, which has got a rated speed of 3,400 megabytes a second. So let's just, all the fans got off. Let's just run that. I have to put my password in, and let's see what speed we get on this. It's reading the disk, very exciting. What we're going to see, oh look, 2,738 megabytes a second. That's not a bad speed. Let's just bring in the speed I've tested on that drive in different systems, which as you can see ranges from 3,447 megabytes a second on an i7 PC to 1820 on a Latte Panda Alpha, and down to about 496 or 446 on far smaller single board computers. So clearly we've got a well configured NVMe SSD socket on the UDOO Bolt. Let's just test out the other drives here. We've got there the M.2 SATA SSD. Let's see what that gives us. Again, excitement there. Oh look, 518 megabytes a second. I can believe that's the speed of a drive. That slot clearly works very well indeed. And finally, let's just do the speed of the eMMC flash on the board itself, what we're running from right here. Again, what's the result going to be? Obviously lower than these, but oh, that's pretty good. Almost 200 megabytes a second for the internal eMMC flash. So those are pretty good results, and I think we'll now move on to take a look at the BIOS. Now, here we are in the BIOS on the UDOO Bolt, and it's a fantastic BIOS. Under advanced here, there's all kinds of options. There's a RAM disk configuration utility, that's rather nice. All sorts of stuff here, so you've got great control of the board if you want to set things up just as you want them. If you're wondering what's down in the main thermal configuration, that is to a setting for when the chip starts to throttle, when the processor starts to throttle. Sadly not fan control. You've got everything here you can control currently except for fan control. Chipset, control of North Bridge and South Bridge, normal security type things, lots and lots of boot configuration options, great to see. Clearly we've got lots of storage you might want to configure. And on the end, as you would expect, you can also override the boot options. And as you might have seen down here, I've actually got a SanDisk USB drive currently plugged into the machine because I want to install Windows. So I'm going to select that to boot from. Oh look, it says UDOO Bolt. And this will hopefully now allow me to set up Windows. This looks rather hopeful, doesn't it? There it is. So I'm now going to get on and install Windows 10, and I'll come back to you when it's finished. So here I am back with Windows 10 installed on the UDOO Bolt. There it is, all working nicely. And to make it all work, I did go to the web and I downloaded the drivers for the V-Series 1000 Radeon embedded chip. So I've got the right graphics drivers here, that's all running fine. And so what I thought I'd now do is to run up Passmark so we can get some comparison of this PC versus other PCs. So I'm going to run the Passmark benchmark there, run all the tests. Yes, we are. I will speed through most of this, and also there'll be some slight breaks in recording due to changes in resolution. And here we are in the first 3D graphics test, flying some planes around. That looks pretty good. Oh, we're back to having these lovely shots of these floating islands with the trees on them. I do like this part of the test. And we're getting a frame rate of about 12, 13, maybe even 14 frames a second. And now we're back with the floating jellyfish in space test, which I call it, which is not doing too badly. It's doing about 30 frames a second here. This is not bad performance, is it, for the onboard embedded graphics. And in the final 3D graphics test, we're off into outer space, running at about 18 to 20 frames a second. And this again is not bad. It's amazing what you can do these days on a small computer. And there we are, it's finished, and we've got a final Passmark score of 3192. CPU mark 7915, 2D graphics 621, 3D graphics 1841, memory mark 1664, and 3246 disk mark, which is pretty good, isn't it? So let's just say OK to that. I won't send it online for now. And here we've got the results relative to two other systems I've tested fairly recently on this channel, and two I think relevant systems. One is the Latte Panda Alpha, which is a similarly priced x86 maker board, and you can see clearly that the UDOO Bolt is significantly faster. The Passmark score of 3192 versus 2280. And then also I've got a comparative score here against the Ryzen 3 2200G budget PC I built earlier this year, which is coming out slightly better at a 3252 versus a 3192. And it's interesting for me that both of these systems are being tested here using their onboard Vega 8 graphics. Now, clearly some of you will say the 2200G system not only comes out on top, it's also cheaper than a UDOO Bolt, and that's certainly true, but we mustn't forget you're paying a premium here to have a very small maker board with that onboard Arduino. But anyway, hopefully these are useful comparative results showing the performance of the UDOO Bolt. The UDOO Bolt is a beautiful computer and a very powerful maker board. Potential applications include robotics, AI, digital signage, media playback, virtual reality, and use as a small desktop PC. But what would you do with a UDOO Bolt? Please let us all know down in the comments section. But now that's it for another video. If you enjoyed what you've seen here, please press that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I hope to talk to you again very soon.